Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to do some router work on this nice rose on recycled pine wood. This was left over from a previous project, and the idea is to route out all the coloured sections, and then once we get to the finishing line we'll simply fill all these in with the matching coloured resin, give it a nice sanding down, and then pour some nice clear resin over the top just to give it a nice shine. Now, as for always for me, we've got our template ready. We put it on our pine. We put carbon paper or graphite paper underneath, and I literally just draw around that. I like to use a pen personally. It just stands out better from using a pencil, and we'll go around the full thing. There is different methods and different ways of transferring this onto here. I just prefer the carbon paper. It all adds to the enjoyment of doing the piece. So once we've gone round, we're basically left with our template there, as you can see. This one measures in at 11 inches by 8.5, basically A4 size. So there's all our template ready to do. Take your time to shade in the areas that you want to remove or the areas that you want to keep, one or the other. You will go away, come back, start getting carried away, and if you start routing out in between, obviously we want them sections all leaving, so we're going to route out all the shaded areas. Now you notice from the original template, we'll just show you quickly, these centerpieces in the leaves, they just stopped a little bit too short at the end for me, and also we're putting the resin in, we need some kind of barrier in between. Now there is different options. You could have routed that out first, put in your green, and then routed out that section. You could route out the full piece, make a little barrier with blue tack, plasticine, anything there just to fill that in. Even hot glue would do. Fill that resin in, let it set, and then remove your blue tack or plasticine or whatever you've used as a barrier. But for me, you'll notice that I basically just extended the point there to that point there. So we've made a nice little barrier in between. So when we put the two different coloured resins, they're not going to run in, and the same on all the leaves. So that's the only modification I've done on this one. And just quickly, for those that's noticed the rose, if you're into your rugby, that's our rose. Okay, so let's talk about bits now. So we've got our template ready. As always for me, I like to use Cnc Bits. These are fantastic, and they're fairly cheap. They come in different degrees, which is basically the angle on the end of the bit. They're 10s, 15s, 20s and 30s. I think I've actually got a 15 in today. If I can just show you. In there like so. And hopefully we can just get that in. There we go. So that's the piece we're going to use. I've found with most of my bits now, I'm using 3mm deep. I made myself a little marker like that. And I know that's 3mm. It's basically the same size as your CNC bit, which is Dremel size 3.175. I'm quite happy to call that 3mm. So that's the depth we're going to go at. That's plenty to hold your resin or your paint or whatever you want to put inside. That's plenty deep enough. You don't have to go too deep because you're basically just wasting resin. So we'll pop that into your reducer adapter collet, or adapter reducer collet should I say, 6.35mm. You basically just slot that into there like so. Now that will fit a 1/4 inch router, no problem. If you're using a Dremel with the router attachment, you can put that straight in the Dremel as it is. So we'll pop that in the router like so, and then we'll do 3mm all the way around in depth. It's what I call inset, so we're going to go up to the line to route it, up to the line to route it. If we're going to remove the middle sections, we'll come that way, obviously. Never route out on your line itself, always up to the line. If you were to route out on that line there, and then route out on that line there, for the slight 3mm you've gone in, you wouldn't narrow that distance here. Does that make sense? And same on the leaves down here. If you're going to go on the line there, and on the line there, that would be so narrow, so you want to be up to the line, up to the line. Okay, once we've gone around all the lines, that's our safety barriers. That way, with these delicate sections here in the middle, if you were to come straight in with a big piece, and come in with a big router bit on that side, should I say, chances are you might break off those middle sections. So we're nice to do a separation joint in between, should I say, with the CNC bits. Now for clear out, I like to use these end milling bits. They come in different sizes. For this one we can get quite a large one. They come with little barriers on. There is some, I believe. There we go. That come without the barriers on. They are basically exactly the same piece. And it's just a simple case of removing your CNC bit, popping in your end milling bit. We'll set it to the 3mm, exactly the same as that. You can purchase proper depth gauges. I'll just say a simple piece of wood does the job. And then we remove out all the inner sections with the end milling bits. If it's going a little bit too slow, there is bigger chunky pieces out there. It's a personal thing. There's profile bits, spiral up cups, line markers. There's all sorts out there. Just find something that suits you. These are just the cheap eBay specials, and they work fine for me. When I first started doing projects, that 1/8 bit, the smallest one of the straight flush bits, I did my lines and the clear out and everything with that one little bit. So we'll see how we go on. If it's a little bit slow, we'll put one of these on just to speed things up. Okay, let's start routing this one out. We'll do a general tidy up, and then hopefully we're heading towards the resin side of things. Right, we've made it all the way round with our little CNC bit. You can see from that we've basically got all our lines done. So now we'd have to start removing the insides of the petals and the leaves and so on. Now for that, if you remember, we're going to start off with these end milling bits. They have the same size shaft, 3.175mm. They also will fit a Dremel if you want to use the Dremel router attachment. So obviously the same size as the CNC bit, so it's just removing that, sliding that one up to that little barrier. Then we'll set it to the same depth as that one we've already released, should I say removed, or we can use that little gauge thing there. And it's just a simple case of starting doing all this clearing out bit of the shaded area. If it's a little bit slow, we'll pop on one of the straight flush bits. They have a 1/4 inch shaft on, so they will fit a router without the need of the little adapter. But we'll see how we go on with this first. So we'll pop this in and just start removing all the shaded areas. Right, you can see from that, that's coming out nice and easy with those end milling bits. And I'm quite happy to use them on all my projects, especially on these smaller ones like so. I'm certainly in no rush to race along and do things. However, we did mention the straight flush bits. I will put descriptions to all these little bits. Obviously these come in a chunkier size and they're ideal for clearing out larger projects. So we did mention them, so I'm just going to pop it in just for that last petal there, just to show you them in action. Personally, I like the end milling bits, but these work just as good, but they are a little bit more aggressive. So for delicate work, I certainly wouldn't put one of these in, as they'll soon pop one of those off. So we'll put this in now. It's a 1/4 inch shaft, so we don't need the adapter reducer collet. So straight into the router, and then we'll clear this one out, and then we'll come back when we're ready to give it a general tidy up. Right, that was our last petal removed. Seconds it takes really, which is slightly aggressive, but if you look, it's basically the same result. So it's a personal choice again, just find what works best for you. So that's all our routing done out on the main router. I'll like to just go inside now and just give it a general tidy up. There's certain bits getting right into these corners here, should I say these points. And inside there, we just want to get rid of this little rough stuff. We don't have to concentrate too much on the background, remember. We are going to fill that all in with resin or paint. I'm going to go for resin, obviously. But you could paint this just as easy, putting all your paints inside, your reds and your greens, and then sanding it all down nicely, and you'll get a nice effect with the paints if resin is not your thing. But before that, we're just going to tidy it up. I'll use one of these flexi cables. I cannot recommend these enough. These are fantastic, and it basically just attaches to the end of a Dremel on that end there. Just show you quickly. You just see there, mine hangs up on a nice homemade bracket, and the cable runs the full length there till the end of there. And for the clearing out bit itself, I like to use these cheap little eBay specials. There you go, nothing too fantastic. I get a nice one with a flat bottom on it, and that just allows us to get in there and just clean out those little sections that we've been talking about. We'll do a quick clean up, nice rubbing down with a mouse sander over the top, just get rid of our pencil lines, bit of sanding maybe. We don't want to make it too round. Remember, I want to fill this in and make it flush with the wood. Normally I would have the barriers slightly raised from the resin so you have a feel of it, but today I'm just going to sand it all down flush and see what kind of effect we've ended up with once we've put our clear resin over the top. So general tidy up first, and then we're on to the next stage. Right, that's enough sanding down and general tidying up for me. We've got our basic shape, what we need there, as you can see from that. Just off camera, I basically just route out a slit in the back, literally 3/4 the depth of that, and that's enough for hanging purposes. Obviously you could put a hook or whatever you prefer on the back for hanging with. Now normally at this stage, those that watched my previous videos, I would like to put boiled linseed oil on this. But remember, we are going to sand it all down afterwards, once the resin's gone in and cured, just to make the resin flush with the wood. So it's a bit pointless putting the boiled linseed oil on, as we're going to sand over the top. But I will put it on later in the project, don't worry about that. Now, resin, paint, anything that you put into these routed out areas, if you're not careful, you could get what they call bleeding, and that is literally the side walls of the routed out area. Because we've routed those out, you might have those made of the grains of the wood, made like straws. The paint or your resin could leak into those straws, we'll call them, and bleed into the side walls of your routed out area. So you're not going to get a nice crispy line. I don't get a lot of it on this pine wood, I must be honest. But to be safe, there is wood sealant you can purchase. Just a brush in there, a bit like a milky colour, and once it's dry, hopefully it will seal those side walls. Because this is resin, you could maybe brush a bit of clear resin in there. That's too much work for me. So I'd just like to get a bit of varnish spray. Anything, doesn't matter what make it is. Literally, we're just going to spray that like so. And I'll give it a couple of sprays, and hopefully the varnish that we're putting in, the spray, it will seal those side walls of the routed out area. So I'll let this dry and then spray on another couple of coats. We don't want it too thickly. Remember, we are going to sand it all down afterwards. So hopefully 2 or 3 coats of this, just get into those side walls like so. And hopefully that will be enough to seal our wood. But there is proper wood sealers if you want to go out and purchase it. Right, resin time now, more or less. We're going to sort some resin out and we'll start filling this in with the colours that we need. Right, it's a couple of hours later and that's all nicely dried now. That varnish was sprayed on there. Remember, that was just to hopefully seal some of those side walls, to stop the resin bleeding in. It's obviously not to cover the wood, and we're going to cover all that with clear resin at the end. Now, resin wise, this is a new one for me today. Just glass cast. I've used Vista one, amazing clear cast, craft resin. I've used all of them, so I'm just trying different ones to find one that suits me. Just keep an eye on your resins and make sure you follow your instructions. This one I noticed is a 100 resin. Basically, whatever you do for the resin, you want half as much, 50% for the hardener. The ones I normally use are 1-to-1. So if you buy volume, an inch of A, an inch of B, you must remember that it's just half as much as the hardener, which is obviously a lot smaller container. On this one, you can actually do by weight as well. So if you've got some nice digital scales, you could weigh it off just as easy with those. But I'm just going to use just simple party cups. These are really cheap to buy. You can get a pack of 100 like that for next to nothing. So I've literally marked it off as A. Just so many marks. They are good because they have little markers on the side. So I've gone for 6 of those for A, and it's 50%, and I've gone for 3 of those for B. So hopefully half as much again. So I'll mix these two. So it's just a simple case of popping A, your resin up to your mark, B, your hardener up to the mark. Remember, 150. So half as much of that one. My normal resins are 100 to 100, 1-to-1. So just remember that, keep an eye on things. I'll mix this off camera because it's quite just boring stuff. And then when we come back, when we throw some colours in, mixing wise, I'll just use again these cheap party spoons, knife, forks. They're ideal because they have a nice little lip on the end here. A little lip inside. And that's ideal if you want to scoop your resin out and literally pour it into your thing. Your project like that, should I say. Nice and simple stuff. And then for the colours, acrylic paints for me. You can buy proper pigments, powders, inks, dyes. I'm just going to go with acrylic paints. So a nice bright red there. There's a slightly darker red at top. That green I'm going to go for most of the leaves, and then a darker leaf for the rest of it. So we'll get this all mixed up and we'll start filling this project in. Right, so we've mixed a little bit of resin there. I'd rather mix small amounts and then add a bit more than mixing a load of resin and then just waste it. So there's our acrylic paint. It is actually red, this. It looks orange on the camera there. And you don't need a lot. I'll just get some on the end here for you to show you. Something like that. So a little bit. And we simply just mix that in with the resin. If you find there's not enough in there, you can just add a bit more until you get the desired colour that you want. It's a bit watery, is that? So I want to go for a bit more. There we go. There we you don't want to overfill it with paint because that might just alter the curing of your resin, so just bear that in mind. So now mixing around like so. Right, that mixed up nicely. So it's just a case of simply pouring it in now. Now on previous projects, I like to pour enough resin in just to allow that wood to show, so you can still feel the shape of the flower. On this one, however, I'm going to slightly overfill it to leave a little bit of a dome on if we can. And then when we sand it all flush to the wood, that'll all be nice, inlaid nicely with the resin. And then we can put nice clear resin over the top just to give it a nice shine. So we've got to be a bit careful with overfilling these. We don't want two colours to mix together. So it might be a case of doing all the reds and all the greens down here, and then we'll leave that, come back the next day and then put in the next colours. We'll see how it fills up as we go along. So we can just pour a bit in here to get us going. It will find its own level as we go along. And some there. And obviously we want a bit of red in there as well. Now you can use your spoon obviously just to feed that round with like so. And we just want to keep topping it up bit by bit. So we've got plenty in, but we've not overfilled it too much that it runs in to the next compartment, if that makes sense. Remember, you could do exactly the same project using paint if you wish. There's that little lip I was on about on the back of the spoon. For smaller, you can just scoop it up like that and just drop it in until it fills in where we need to go. It's a slow process, but the effect at the end hopefully will be enough for what we need. Okay, we get the general idea from that. So I'll continue and we'll fill the rest of this flower in and see how far we can get without any of it running into the next colour. We'll be back in a minute. Right, you can see from that we've got all our red in. There's plenty of bubbles there. It's hard to show you without tilting it, but it is slightly overfilled. So we've got a little bit of a doming effect on there. As the resin dries, it will shrink down slightly, but hopefully there's enough in there to allow us to rub that, sand that down flush afterwards. So we just want a quick lighter, so just to go over like that. You can see all those bubbles disappearing, like so. And that will be it for that colour. So we will continue, put the rest of the colours in. Same thing again with the lighter, just get rid of those bubbles. Don't know if you can see it from there. Don't matter about any spillages, remember. We are going to sand over this completely at the end. Sand it all nice and flush with the wood. Right, I'll come back when this is all nicely filled and we're ready for our sanding. Right, that's it. We've filled that in nicely. So it's just a case of leaving it now for a good 48 hours. And then we'll come back. Well, hopefully we'll sand this down. And we'll see what we're left with. And then we'll flood coat the full piece with some nice clear resin this time. Right, it's a good 48 hours later, and you can see from that, that's nicely set, nice and solid. If we thought on a little bit, we could maybe not have put so much in this and left it as it was, and that would be a nice little finished project, because it has really come up nice, that resin. Nice colours in there. But remember, we slightly overfilled it, so we've still got a little bit of a dome effect there. It's hard to see. And that's enough resin for us to be left behind to allow us to sand it down flush. Obviously, we're sanding it down, we're going to lose that lovely shine. But hopefully, when we flood coat this with resin, allowing it to run down the sides as well, this should all bring the shine back, hopefully, to the rose itself. Now I was going to put some boiled linseed on here for those that's waiting for it to happen. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave this wood, just bare wood, and I'm hoping that the resin we put on top will darken these sides and the top bit slightly. So basically sand it all down flush now, and then we put some resin over the top, and this little project will be finished. Now I'm just going to go straight in with a nice belt sander. The resin will stick to your paper, so give it a little brush off, get a nice clean paper in, and then to finish it off with maybe a little mouse sander. Same again, just a skim over the top. 120 grit in both of these. That's all sanded down now. Just a 120 grit on a belt sander and a little mouse sander to finish it off. Well, that's plenty enough for me. If you look closely, you can see all the little scratches on the resin and stuff. Remember, you can sand that down as much as you like, 2000, 3000, and just can go on and go on. But for my little project, I'm going to see what clear resin does when we just pour it over the old piece. Let it run down the sides. We will end up with little droplets underneath of the resin. So I'm just going to put a bit of tape round here, a bit of blue painter's tape. Right, resin time, just to finish off our layer. Obviously we're going to need some kind of tray underneath. I've actually got mine rested on CDs. There is proper tables out there with proper levels on. I've already done mine, and I know that little bit of paper is enough when that sits on there to make that nice and level. So that's that done already. Now you'll see from that, I put the blue tape on the back. Hopefully as the resin comes down the sides, it will gather underneath, and we'll end up with loads of little droplets all the way around like so. And ideally, this is the first time I've tried this, remember. We'll come in with a heat gun of some description. As we peel that off, that should peel all those little blobs off at the same time. I've tried it without this on before, and I'll let you just sand them off just as easy, but it's another little method, so we are learning all the time. And that's just simple painter's tape. You can use oil on the back of there. Some people have used Vaseline before. Just liquid latex, should I say. Anything to make a little barrier and make life a little bit easier. So we're ready for our pour now. We know that's nice and level. We've got it on a little tray, so we can lift it to one side hopefully when it's all done for curing purposes. And we'll get a nice tray and cover it with something. I do recommend you try and cover your pieces. You'll come back in 24 hours and you could have a fly on there. There'll be an air of some description or a bit of dust. So always try and cover it if you can. Same resin as always for this one, this project anyway. Glass cast. We've mixed it already, exactly the same, and there it is. Always put gloves on and stuff, and you want a nice mask and plenty of ventilation in the room. I only keep my gloves off for this purpose because I've got to operate my little mobile phone above, which is basically dangling on some cord while I do my filming. Nothing for the best for this one. So once I start, I can assure you the mask and everything else gets put on. Right, so that's it. So we go for it. So let's just pour this on. Remember, this is just onto bare wood, and I'm hoping that that resin will darken that wood down slightly on the edges and down the sides. You can see from that it's just going nicely darker there. Look, and we just feed it along. I'm using the end of a knife today. If you've got gloves on, you can use your fingers and get in there and spread it nicely with your fingers. So I'm going to concentrate on the top section first, like so. You can just see that wood darkening nicely as that resin, should I say, gets soaked in. It's entirely up to you how you want to do this. If you want to spend more time and really sand it nice and smooth and flush, that's entirely up to you. these are just fun little projects for me. So I'm not prepared to waste too much time making it perfect. This is quite happy to do this. This is ideal for what I need. So it's definitely darkened that wood down, so I'm pleased with that. So that saved us putting the boiled linseed on. There's plenty of thickness left yet, so I'll put this little bit to one side. I have another project for that, so we'll just leave that there for now. And we'll continue with this as quick as we can. Going right to the edge, like so. And eventually it'll start running down. You notice the tray underneath, I've just lined it with a bit of cling film. That's so we can just peel that off afterwards and it's no problem. Now it's just starting to rush down the edges now. And hopefully that will seal those side ends. I do have issues with the end grain. Maybe could have brushed on a bit of clear on the beforehand and give it a couple of hours to settle in. But as it is, we've gone straight through it. So it's dripping off nicely over the edges, like so. And every so often you can come in with your knife and just scrape along there, get all your bits and then put it back on top again. Right, I'll come back in a minute when I've literally covered all these sides. Right, that's more or less covered now. So I've got all the sides done. I can't really show you without tilting it on its side, which is we won't recommend seeing the way we've got it all balancing on CD cases and stuff like that. But it's gone all the way down the sides nicely like so. And like I said before, we can use these little scrapers on the end of the spoon, fork, knife to go around, collect all your drips like so. And just keep topping it up like that. I'll just turn this round sideways on, we might get a better view of it. There we go, so that's all nicely covered now. It's run down the sides nicely. So we just need to go over with a little lighter. I've done some description, just a cheap lighter, that's all you need. I've gone and got myself one of these things here. Still getting used to this one, by the way. I'm going to just skim across like so. If you want too much, that's just enough to get rid of any little bubbles we've got lying about. And that's it, that's all we can do for now. So we'll leave this for a good 24 hours and then when we come back, hopefully this little project will be finished. Right, it's been 24 hours later. Before I reveal the finish on this one, I just want to remove this tape and just see if we can get rid of all those little droplets. Remember we mentioned those? So that's basically all the resin that's run over the sides and unfortunately collects underneath. Now I have sanded these straight down on previous projects. This is the first time for the tape for me and I've started a little section here and so far it looks like it might work. Remember, you could put oil on here, Vaseline, latex, liquid latex should I say, anything to make a barrier there, or simply just sand it off afterwards. Doesn't take too long, but it's nice little chunky bits on here. Now for this one I'm just using an hairdryer. I don't know if a lighter would work or a heat gun, but just an old, I say old, just simple hairdryer. Remember we're going to get the noise, so I'll start peeling it off and then I'll speed it up and then hopefully it'll all come off in one go. So we're simply just going to warm it all up. Well, that come off fantastic. Quite pleased with that one. So that's the first for me. So that's something else we've learned today. Right, time to turn it over. We've got those sides nicely done. And that's the front piece itself. Start to see in here. We will go outside in the shed and we'll get a better look at it. But so I'm really pleased with the front of that. That's come out really nice. We've got it down the sides nicely. Those end pieces aren't too bad. If I was going to be critical, there's one little piece somewhere along here. A little dry bit there. It feels a little bit rougher. So maybe next time I would go around and brush on some nice clear resin all the way around. Let that sit for 2 or 3 hours just to get embedded in, should we say. And then when we come to put our top coat on, it can just run over the top and just those sides will be a little bit better. But apart from that, no problem with that whatsoever. Really pleased with that one. Well, we'll go back into the shed and hopefully we'll see it under some better lighting. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. Now I'll come back into the shed and hopefully we can just see that lovely shine on there if we can just get it right. Quite pleased with that one on the front there, no problem whatsoever. Lovely and smooth, lovely nice finish. We could put a bit of oil on the back just to darken that down. No problem whatsoever. And we've got our little slit there for hanging purposes. Like I said previously, maybe a little bit more on the sides next time. But apart from that, we're pleased with that one. It's a nice, lovely, beautiful, shiny finish. Struggling to show you with the reflection there. And that's it. This little project is finished. So there we have it. It's recycled pine. It measures in roughly at 11 inches by 8 inches across. We use our little Cnc bits for routing out the lines with, end milling bits for the clear out, and we put on one of those little straight flush bits. I'll put the description in the title for all the bits I used. And then we popped in some resin mixed in with acrylic paints, sanded it all down, and then we flood coated the whole thing with resin to finish it with. So that's it. This little project is finished. Thank you very much for watching.